You guys can remember The Path, Season 1, Episode 4, The Future. I was really looking forward to this episode. As you guys know, I've really been enjoying the show so far. I know a lot of people haven't been enjoying it, saying, oh, it doesn't portray religion accurately, or it's kind of slow and things like that. I've really been enjoying it. I think the show has lived up to a lot of potential. It's been delivering a lot. This, for me, this episode was pretty perfect. I absolutely love this episode. Without a doubt, the best episode The Path has given us so far. It was incredible and really combined, I think, every good aspect the show has given us was in this episode. Everything that I've loved was here. There wasn't anything I didn't love, and everything about this, I mean, this was also a very character-driven episode, focused very much on the characters, the way that these decisions affect them, things like that, and I think that's really when the show is at its best, and I definitely think the show can top this episode. Like, this episode was incredible, and it was an amazing episode, and I loved everything about it, but I do think the show can top this episode. As great as it was, I think this episode just showed the potential the show really does have, and, I mean, just remember, guys, we're only in Season 1, you know, that's the thing, we're only in Season 1, there's plenty of time to develop this further, and you can definitely tell where the show is going to go after this episode, because I know a lot of people have been wondering where exactly we're going, and I think this episode definitely can tell where we're going. But let's just get into this episode, because I really did enjoy it. Of course, the biggest thing in this episode, the first thing we deal with, of course, was Miranda Frank. As we know, Miranda Frank overdosed, as we see. Now, it seemed like she had committed suicide. It seemed like she was dead, but we find out very quickly that she's not, in fact, dead. We see, after Eddie told everyone he had an affair with Miranda, he, too, diverted blame from his own doubts about Meyrism. He visited her cell, found her comatose on the floor, and since she's since been rushed to the hospital and finds herself one-on-one with Cal. And the way we cut between this, seeing Eddie and Sarah dealing with this, kind of talking about what's going on, and then seeing this whole thing with Cal talking to them, we basically get to see Cal. He's there to question Miranda about what's going on here. You know, she tells him about what really happened in Peru, because obviously Sarah's very interested. She wants to know straight out what happened, and basically, this is what she saw. She saw Eddie muttering to himself that there is no lights after a drug-induced vision of his dead brother. And this is what's very interesting. We don't really know what it's about. We don't really know why he's seeing this stuff, but basically that seems to be the thing that really has affected him ever since we've seen that. And I think there were some really great deeper ways they further gave the idea of Eddie not being okay with Meyrism. Like, they've done it in very small ways like that, but I feel like this episode, they probably did it in the most subtle ways possible, and that's when I really think the show is at its best, is the way that they show Eddie just not being okay with Meyrism. I think they did a very job with that here, because we see basically there is a visit from Bill and Felicia, who are two Meyrist elders who have worked with this, Meyrism since Meyer worked on it, since, the beginning of the movement, and they're in town for annual Ascension Day festival, putting a slight crimp in Cal's plans to mold the movement's future in his own image, because as we know, he wants to develop Meyrism as best he can. He wants more people to be Meyrists, and, if you're not Meyrism, he really is not a fan of you, and you can see right away that Bill and Felicia, they are not okay with Cal's vision in the future, and I like seeing someone actually bring Cal down. These two characters, though, were very interesting. We can see that they're not interested, but we see several rank-and-file members of the movement are. Some of the younger ones grill Hawk at school. It's very interesting the way that we saw that. I definitely like seeing Bill and Felicia not actually being okay with this and kind of actually counseling Cal about it. That was very interesting when we saw that. We also see that they have connections to Eddie and Sarah. As we know, Eddie, Sarah, and Cal, they've been tight since the beginning, and you can tell that Bill and Felicia, Eddie, Sarah, and Cal, they've all been tight since the beginning. They've all been like one little group, and the way that Bill and Felicia kind of felt like Cal's parents, I thought was very interesting. I definitely love seeing that. So, throughout this entire episode, there's talk of the future. The future's coming, what's going to happen, what does this actually mean? We keep hearing about the future and what's going to happen and that this future is approaching. There's just small moments, like some of the younger ones are talking to Hawk at school about it, and he doesn't really know what he knows about it. When it comes to Bow inside Hawk's soul, what's most important to him is Ashley. You can tell in this episode he can't stop staring at her, and he doesn't really seem to care much about the future because of Ashley. Ashley is pretty much changing him as a person, and you really start to see in this episode. That's something I definitely really enjoyed. I think they definitely have done a good job with developing Hawk and Ashley, but never as well as I thought they would. When this was first introduced, I thought this was going to be the weak point of the show, because a lot of shows like this, when you have two teenage characters, they really seem to downgrade the show. With this, I think it's only expanding the mythology of the world. Hawk all his life has been told certain things are right and wrong, and things are, he's kind of been sheltered from the outside world, and now that he's in, at school and everything, and he's with people that aren't Meyrists, he's starting to get exposed and starting to enjoy it more, you definitely see, and I like seeing that. Especially after Ashley invites him to this party the same night as Ascension Day, and he's very wishy-washy about it, but basically she converts him to secularism via a specially deployed indie rock mixtape being Arcade Fire. And in this case, unfortunately, we see that, which I thought was interesting, because we find out some more things about Meyrism. Apparently, they don't like to listen to modern-day music, because to them, modern-day music basically is the devil's music. It provides all these terrible metaphors and all these deeper things, and they like to listen to older music from like the 60s and 50s when there were a lot more hopeful times. And yeah, that really is true. A lot of the great music we listen to today, it has really dark themes, and to Meyerists, they think that the people who are in Meyerist, that they're going to be exposed and be inspired by these themes, and really, I mean, they have some good points there, where a lot of these songs are very deep, and they do have very deep meanings, some of which aren't very good, and things like that, and, basically, you can tell that it's really taking an effect on someone like Hawk, because, you can tell that he's torn between, is this right, is this wrong, but in the same way, I mean, to Ashley, that's what all teenagers do, is they have sex, they party, they drink, and that's something that Hawk has never done. He's really never been a regular teenager. You can tell in this episode, he definitely wants to be, which I thought was very interesting. I definitely really did enjoy seeing that, the way that they showed with the conflict going on between Ashley and Hawk, I absolutely loved. So something else going on this episode is this idea with Freddie Ridge. If you remember, Freddie Ridge was that boy that was dealing with drug addiction, that Cal's parent, that, Cal basically got away and basically took him in, and basically they've been forced to take him into the movement, but Freddie seems to be doing better, but Sarah really isn't convinced that he is doing better. She thinks that Freddie's faking his conversion, saying whatever his parents want to hear, she wants him to try Meyrist-Medicine. Basically, whatever his parents want to hear, that's what he's telling them. It's not exactly the truth, he's just doing what they want, and she wants him to take Meyrist-Medicine, but to the Ridge parents, that sounds just like another drug, because of course they're not Meyrists. They don't really know what Meyrist-Medicine is. To them this is just a drug, and over Sarah's protest, they take their son with them. Cal is on their side, it turns out. He doesn't want the Meyrists messing around with that medicine anymore, which I think is the first time we've heard about that medicine. We don't really know what it does, but it seems like it can kind of like take your pain away, but especially when the son of such powerful potential supporter is at stake. He doesn't want them to actually use this medicine, which I was surprised about, that Cal actually doesn't want them to use this, and we find out basically that drugs were a big part of Meyrism's past, but it's not what Cal wants. And whether or not this is what, Felicia and Bill wanted, this is what Cal wants. And it seems like what Cal wants is much more important than what Bill and Felicia wants. Basically what he wants takes precedence, and what they want is kind of just secondary. So I think that's very interesting. So basically we see Cal's rehearsing another big speech for Ascension Day. And by the way, there's a lot of building stuff in this episode. Like I said, a lot of conversation about the future, things like that, which I definitely really loved. One of the big parts of this episode, though, has to do with Cal giving this speech about Ascension Day, and that's really when this episode takes off. Because before I was really loving the episode, I thought it was definitely very well done, especially with seeing Bill and Felicia kind of taking over, trying to basically, they're the leaders and everything. I thought that was very well done. I really loved everything that was good there. But once Cal gives a speech, that's really when this episode takes off into high gear, because he's giving this huge speech for Ascension Day, and, it gets interrupted twice. Now, the first interruption is by Eddie, which we've seen some small interactions between Cal and Eddie before, but the thing is, we've known that these two are friends. We've known that Cal, Sarah, and Eddie, they've all been friends, and you start to see here that this bond really is starting to break, and you can definitely tell that I think the show is less about Eddie and Sarah, because that's what the show has seemed. It seems like it's more about Cal and Eddie. Like, it's kind of like Hannibal in the way it was about Will and Hannibal. This is very much about Cal and Eddie. So Eddie wants to know where Miranda Frank is, because obviously, he thought that she was dead, but he can't find her in the hospital. She's missing, and she has no idea where she is, which I thought, by the way, was an incredible scene by Aaron Paul. I've heard a lot of people say Aaron Paul is holding back. Watch this episode. He is definitely not holding back, definitely. I mean, he really gave it his all in that scene. And, the way that he's just begging to look for Miranda Frank, and everyone's just escorting him out, like nothing's going on. Cal won't tell him, and the divides between these two old friends are starting to become clear, even to them. Eddie and Cal were once friends, but now, basically, it seems like they're starting to go on very different paths. Eddie not being okay with Meyrism, and Cal being okay with it. But Cal is a solution to this strife. Eddie should attempt the next run of the ladder, 7R, with Cal as his guide. According to Sarah, this is an intense, revealing process, and definitely this is very interesting. And I think it's also going to show that Eddie and Cal are going to learn a lot about each other on this course. They both have very different paths in mind. Eddie and Cal doesn't know that Eddie isn't okay with Meyrism. He doesn't know about that yet. He doesn't know about it. I know because Eddie hasn't really told anyone about it. And I feel like it's something that Eddie and Cal are going to further explore. Eddie's going to understand why Cal is so deeply affected and wants to be Meyris and why that's like his thing for life. While I think Cal's going to realize why Eddie doesn't think Meyrism's okay, which whether or not Cal agrees with it, that's really how Eddie feels. And I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen with that. So that part I really did love. So Cal's next interruption comes from Felicia, who tells him that she'll be delivering the Ascension Day orientation instead, and he doesn't get to do that. And obviously, you can tell this really affects Cal. But he doesn't freak out because, like I said, Bill and Felicia are kind of like his parents here. And basically, we find out this story that I thought was very interesting because we've always heard about Myers and what they really want to do, but we find out something here that's very interesting. She was there when Meyer ascended and has the burns on her hands to prove it. She's a living embodiment of the past, and you can tell that this is really upsetting Cal. He doesn't really know how to feel about this. He doesn't really know what to do, and I definitely really love seeing it. I thought there were some very good scenes here. I definitely really love that, and definitely really, really well done. I definitely really enjoyed the way that scene was done, just little things like that. So Cal decides to go to Mary, which Mary, again, like I've said before, seems to be the thing that is really fundamentally changing Cal. And in this episode, you start to see that that might not necessarily be a good thing, because we know that Cal wanted her to be with Sean. He said straight on the second episode, go to Sean, don't be with me, you just can't be with me, it's not safe. He told her that. So she's with Sean, and it's just not really doing much of anything. Her and Sean are having sex and things like that, but she doesn't really feel anything. And basically, Cal instructed her to do this, basically, probably so he can use Cal as his own psychic surrogate, but he asks Mary to tell her where Sean kisses her, and as she obliges and basically tells him exactly what's going on, Cal starts to rub himself and things like that. I don't know if he was necessarily jerking off, but he really was affected. It was almost like Mary was pleasuring him, which we knew she wasn't, but just the way this was done was very interesting, because she's just describing him in detail as to what Sean was doing and saying, oh, I pretended it was you and all these things, and it felt like they were having phone sex, honestly. The way it was done, it was very interesting the way this conversation was done. And basically, again, she's not touching him or anything. She's not even, she's not even like rubbing him or anything. He's literally just getting very affected by what she's saying. And I definitely thought that was very interesting. And it seems to be a very complicated relationship. Like, Mary wants more, but Cal wants it to be strictly just, she's a Meyris, and that's kind of the bond that they have. Which I think is very interesting, and definitely I think to Cal is starting to really change him. I think Cal all his life has been told things, and now Mary is kind of making him go against some of those things. But to Cal, that's wrong. Like, Cal has always, been told these things, and now he's starting to think that's wrong. Like, there's something wrong about it, and I really feel the relation between Cal and Mary is ultimately what's going to break Cal. Because right now, Cal is definitely damaged. We know that he's damaged. We know he has a lot going on with him. But I feel like this is really what's going to break him. It's going to break him. It's not going to end well for him. If I said that Mary was going to change him, no, this is definitely going to affect him. It's going to break him, and I don't really know what's going to happen. I feel like Mary wants to change Cal, wants to make him something less, not less authoritative, that's not the word, just less powerful than he is, not, just less, worried and things like that, less aggressive, just more loose, and I don't know if Cal really wants it, which is very interesting. We do actually get a very fun scene in this episode with Eddie and Sarah, because things seem to be getting a lot better. They've kind of moved past Miranda Frank. Sarah realizes that Eddie does still care about her. They get a few minutes to relax, and they actually play together by the lake, which I thought was a pretty funny scene. I like the way that was done, and it does show that this couple, they actually can get better, and at the end of the day, this couple, they do love each other, and I definitely really do love that. And, the show really is about family in many ways. It's about the family, but Cal is as much a part of the family as anything. That's one of the big things, that Cal is a part of that family because they've had such a bond with him. So soon of his time for Ascension Day, Felicia preaches passionately about the legendary event when Meyer ascended a ladder so hot it burned at Felicia's touch, and later and I thought that was a very interesting story. I don't think we've heard about this before, and I really like hearing about that. Later she hangs out with the other gray-haired veterans of the movement, reminiscing about old days with Bill and Hawk, and with Bill and Hank and the others, and Joy saw Hank with Ashley earlier and confronts him about it now, but now it's, it's a little too late, because as we know, Joy saw Hawk with Ashley, but now it's just a little too late. You can tell that he is falling for her, he wants to be with her, and he's not really gonna say no. At this point, he wants to be with Ashley, and he's not really gonna let anyone tell him, this isn't what we do, that sort of thing. Like I've said before, this is a very Romeo and Juliet-esque relationship, in the sense that Hawk isn't very smart with what he's doing. But again, he's really been growing up in this life of, these are right and these are wrong. And as a teenager, you want to go against those rules. That's just who we are. That's just who we are. When you're a teenager, you want to be rebellious, you want to go against the rules, and that's exactly what Hawk is doing. He wants to go against this, but he doesn't know if it's right necessarily. So, basically, then Sarah finds Freddie Ridge drugged out with a needle in his arm, just like she predicted when the Ridges left early, and maybe Cal's futuristic methods aren't working as well as the time-honored ones after all, and maybe they should be using the drugs, which Cal's saying isn't going to work, but that might actually be the way to go, because clearly this isn't helping Freddie at all. Nothing seems to be helping him. He seems to be exactly the way he was, and there needs to be a way to save this kid, but I don't really know if that's going to work. We'll have to see what happens with that. That definitely is going to be very interesting. We also see a lot more with Abe Gangs, Abe, whatever you call him, but Gangs, basically Abe, I'm gonna call him Abe because that's what everyone seems to be calling him. Abe, we find out a bit more about his family, like he has this child, and we find a little bit more about his family, which I definitely like seeing, but he's in disguise as a potential recruit, wanders around confused for a while before finally hearing Mary's story of the abuse she suffered from her father. And of course, Abe's entire distrust of Meyrism was based around the idea that they kidnapped Mary from her father. So now, he really needs to rethink what he's doing, because he seemed to think that she was kidnapped, and that her father was in fact, just her father, a concerned father. He didn't know that she was a sex slave and all these things, and I mean, when we hear about Mary, it's really well done the way they did that story. You can tell that Abe is fundamentally changing in the way that he really is trying to go about this. He's realizing that this isn't as much about bringing Meyris down, rather than he kind of needs to just find what really the problem is, because he knows there's a problem with Meyris, but it's definitely not that. They are trying to bring Mary to that light. Definitely, I thought that was very interesting, and I loved the scene where they're all singing that song, basically the Meyrist song, they all start singing, except for Eddie and Abe. Eddie feels very off about it. He doesn't really know if he wants to sing it. No one really questions him, but you can tell he's just awkwardly looking around, like, should I actually participate in this? Is this really the right thing to do? Am I really a Meyrist? Because a lot of things that Eddie's thinking about, he doesn't feel are part of what the Meyrists do, and Abe as well, he's not a Meyrist. So, Felicia then tells A that he should climb 7R so that he can keep an eye on Cal for the elders, but they don't like where Cal is headed and tell him as much later, and Cal is angry that Meyer is dying and the other elders don't have any plan for the future of the movement other than praying for a miracle, because it doesn't really seem like they want to do much of anything, that they just want to hope that something is going to happen, while Cal actually does want to take action, and he takes them to see Miranda Frank, who is now peaceful, and she's singing Cal's praises, and he tells them that he has the gift, that they may have been important to the foundation of Meyrism, but he's going to take it into the future. And basically, I think this episode confirms that Cal basically gave himself this position. Nobody seemed to give it to him. Nobody said Cal's the one to do this. He just feels that it is his duty to continue this. And whether that's right or not, that's what Cal wants to do. And I think that part is very interesting. Just the fact that Cal, we don't necessarily know if they are okay with this or not. I think you can tell that Bill and Felicia, they don't necessarily want him to do this. Cal's just like, I don't care. I'm going to do this by myself. That's what I want. And Cal even goes further, declaring in no uncertain terms that he will finish Meyer's work, he will write the last 3 rings of the ladder, and declare himself the chosen one. He's going to do this. He doesn't care whether they want him to or not. He's going to do it because he feels it's the best thing to do. And I think that's very interesting. You can tell that Bill and Felicia, they're happy about Miranda's healthy status, but they don't trust her with Cal. They know that Cal is dangerous, and they know that Cal, this just isn't going to work. So they actually take her out west with them, making her Meyrism's new director of outreach. But before they go, they show her to Eddie, remind him to keep an eye on Cal for them, and you can definitely tell that things are getting very dangerous for Cal. He's just growing more and more powerful, and you can tell as the show goes on, I think Cal's just going to get more and more power, and the more he gets, the more he loves it. Cal's very power hungry, okay? That's what it is, and I think it's not just that he's power hungry, though. He does want to turn things around, but his vision of the future isn't really anyone else's. And his version, like I said, seems to be taking precedence over what anyone else's version is. He doesn't care what their version is, as long as his future paves the road for really where they should go. And he doesn't feel there's another way, really, which I think is very interesting. I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen there. Because like I said, it seems like he only has one specific vision, and if it clashes with that vision, then they're just wrong. And I find that to be very interesting, and I can't wait to see where that goes. So like I said, Cal's growing more and more power hungry, and I don't really know if they're going to be able to stop him. So against everyone's expectations, we didn't really know what Hawk was going to do, but he actually does decide to go to the party. Not only does he go to the party, he passionately kisses Ashley beside a bonfire, and I think mainly this is him just realizing that he's in love with her. He loves her, he wants to be with her, and he'll do anything to be with her. He doesn't care what everyone's telling him, even though he says all these people saying, oh, it's not right, it's not right. He doesn't care. He's going to go against them because Ashley really means the most to him over anything. It's like Cal. How what he wants takes precedence. Ashley takes precedence over everything else, and the contrast between I think is very cool. I definitely really did love that. We see Eddie decides to, basically, after Bill and Felicia leave, Eddie actually does meet with Cal in the middle of the night in a forest to start 7R. He does want to start it. Cal then gives him a shovel, tells him to start digging, because there's one thing that Cal loves, is taking metaphors and beating people over the head with them, and basically says, you know, start digging, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, guys, amazing episode. I absolutely loved what this episode was doing. You can tell the relation between Eddie and Cal is definitely changing. I mean, those two, they're starting to not agree as much, and I think Cal's starting to see that Eddie does not really side with him. Not many people are siding with him. Even Sarah doesn't seem to be. But it does seem like Cal's plan, it does make sense, and what Cal wants might be the best way to go. I mean, even though a lot of people don't agree with what Cal is doing, it might only be the only way for them to prevail as a society, and I think it's very interesting the way that's being handled. I can't wait to see where that goes, and overall, I really loved everything about this episode. But let's talk about Cal, because what he wants is very interesting. What is he really going to do? You can tell he's power hungry, and I think his plan is only going to get more and more crazy, and we'll have to see what happens with that. Clearly, Bill and Felicia do not trust him, but we'll have to see. And I've had this question, you know, all season. Was, you know, Cal's position Meyer's decision, or did he just give it to himself? And it really is making me think Cal just gave it to himself and nobody else wanted it. But how did Meyer go into this coma? I mean, yes, we know he's dying, but I kind of feel like Cal did something to him. Just the way this is headed, it just seems like that's where this is going. I also love the scene with Bill and Felicia, and basically them telling Cal that they're his parents, and he's saying, oh, no, you're not my parents, everything like that. I thought that was very good, and especially when we saw that scene with his mom, that she's very concerned about him and didn't really know who he is. I mean, you can really tell that Cal sees things in his own way, and whether this is right or not, I think is very interesting the way we're seeing it. I mean, we know what Cal's been through, and I think it's very interesting the way they're writing all this, because it's not necessarily writing Cal as a bad guy. I don't think that Cal's a villain necessarily. I think Cal is just a very power-hungry guy that has these visions, and really no one else is siding with him, and basically it's just making him more and more angry, you can tell, which I think is very interesting. As far as Miranda Frank, Eddie now has to look at her. What is this going to do between him and Sarah? I mean, Sarah, I don't know how she's really going to feel about this. Obviously, this is a very complex relationship right now. I don't really know what's going to come out of this, but we'll have to see what happens there. It's going to be very interesting what happens between Eddie and Sarah. How is this going to affect them? What's going to happen with that? That's something I'm definitely looking forward to. And then Hawk. Hawk clearly is falling in love with Ashley. There's nothing really anyone can do about it. He loves her. She seems to be taking place over everything, and is this really the right thing to do? I mean, I don't think Hawk is really concerned with what's the right thing. He loves Ashley. He wants to be with her. That's really all it is, and I can't wait to see what happens with that. We know that Ashley has that boyfriend as well, so definitely something's going to happen there. We'll have to see what happens with that, but overall, guys, absolutely love this episode. By far, best episode of the season. Definitely really good stuff. I know I didn't talk as much in detail about this episode, mainly because a lot of this episode was just people at the party talking about the future, things like that, but that future seems to be something that only Cal wants, while everyone else is just thinking the future will take care of itself, while Cal really does want to move forward. I think that's something that's very interesting. The way that Cal's being written, less as a villain, is more as an outspoken force, I think is very interesting. I definitely really do love that. But overall, guys, I'm glad you guys saw this episode. For me, this episode finally hooked me. I've been waiting for episodes. You guys know that the first 3 episodes I really love, but this was the episode that locked me in. I absolutely love where the rest of the show is headed, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next, 6 episodes. Also, as far as Abe goes, how is this investigation going to change for Abe? Because now he knows that Mary is no longer was not kidnapped by the Meyrists. How is this really going to change? I mean, clearly he is definitely going to change as well. We'll have to see what happens with that. And also, when he got back to his wife and kid, he seemed to fundamentally have changed. And I don't know if maybe he's going to try to follow Meyrism. I don't really know what's going to happen there. But it does seem like they're writing Abe as a lot more than a police detective, which I'm very happy about. As you guys know, when they started this, I didn't want this to be an investigation. It seemed more to be a discovery for Abe rather than investigation, and that's what I want this to be. I don't want this to be Abe just, investigating this. I want to be discovering things. It seems like he really is discovering really what Meyrism is all about, and maybe he actually wants to pursue it, which I think is very interesting. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Mary. Like I said with Mary, that seems to be a very destructive relationship right now. Mary and Cal. Is Mary a good thing for Cal? For me, it seems like she's making Cal worse, and it's making him feel things he's never felt before, which, more or less is, however you guys feel about it. But overall, guys, I think that's very interesting. I can't wait to see where that goes. And then Eddie and Sarah, they seem to be patching things up as well. But as far as Sarah goes, is that medicine the best thing for, what now I can't think of his name right now. Is the medicine the best thing for Freddie Bridge? I mean, Sarah seems to think so, but clearly, Cal does not see things that way, and it seems to be that Cal, what Cal wants, again, everyone just agrees with it. It seems like Sarah just doesn't agree with them. We'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, I'm not sure you guys saw this episode. Absolutely love this episode. Like I said, it locked me in, and we'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for tonight's episode of Outlander, which I cannot wait for, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.